What the Tech is sponsored by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks, with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by my tag team partner, Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
I'm wearing Paul Thurrott blue once again this week. I think I'm just going to wear blue shirts.
Like an IP violation to me. Is that a like the Boston Red Sox font on some other thing?
On my shirt?
Yeah.
No, CBGB's. the rundown nightclub, rock club here in New York that they finally tore apart. I've seen many great bands and many awful bands in the same place. It's actually to mock you. That's the entire point of this shirt.
I'm just going to sit here and bleed while you think.
Yeah, you were right. So, but right before we started the show, guys, Paul had a shaving injury and he's been bleeding.
Yeah, you know, I make the same mistake every week. Like I shave and shower right before the show.
Yeah, I think you got to stop that.
I don't know why I do that.
I haven't showered or shaved before a show in years.
Well, you think I could do it like an hour before?
My wife called me right before we started the show, and this wasn't on the show notes, but I thought we should talk about this because it's somehow linked in with technology. My wife is a victim of having her identity stolen, her credit card number stolen, like 3 times a year. This started about 2 years ago, where a guy locally, I mean, it happened. I assume the first time was local. We probably went out somewhere, I was assuming, this was my assumption, and they took those credit card readers, and they probably scanned her credit card, grabbed the data, and put it on another card, and the guy went from gas station to gas station buying cartons of cigarettes. And they finally found it.
That's very common. That last bit you just said?
The cigarettes?
Is very common because for some reason, there's something about gas stations where purchases up to a certain amount aren't really even checked, just to slipstream the process. And oftentimes when credit cards are stolen, that's what they do with them is they go to gas stations.
I'm guessing because they don't ask you for the 3-digit ID number in the back.
Yeah, that's part of it too.
I mean, that probably has something to do with it. But regardless, so the guy was buying cigarettes, but it was a local guy. Like, it was a couple miles away. It was a different town, but it was local. So we assumed, you know what, we probably went somewhere, or she went to like some deli and bought something and something happened. About a year ago, somebody went into a bank in South Florida and took out $400 from her account.
What?
Just walked into the bank.
Really?
Just had a slip, not a deposit, a withdrawal,
offense?
like a withdrawal slip. Went in, handed it to them, and they gave them the money and they left. I don't even know how that's possible because even when I go to deposit money in my bank, they ask for every form of ID here. So who knows what happened there?
Right.
We just got a text from Chase, and this is the cool thing about Chase. They're really big on the technology. They sent her a text at like 3:40 in the morning saying, "Hey, did you buy $15 worth of stuff at Express?"
Are you up buying stuff?
Hey, is this
if you're not?
So somebody bought $15 at Express, $15 at iTunes, $15 at someplace else. I forgot. It was like 3 stores. Oh, Best Buy. So she called. She's like, "No," and it's a debit card, the number that they use, and she's never used this card before, like ever. So she's like, "Wow, that's a little weird." Now they just got her on her other Chase card, her Chase credit card, like the Sapphire card. Yeah. And they bought like $5 worth of stuff at Best Buy and someplace else and another place. So like it's unbelievable. Like I can't figure out how and this is happening. And you were telling me that this has happened to you many times.
Many times. Yeah. And I was telling you earlier, I mean, I think part of the reason is tied to the fact that we go to a small local bank. And so they don't have any of their own stuff, right? So they go through a central credit card processing center somewhere. And I think that place gets hit all the time. I think I used to work in banking, and so I know they have these blank cards that are white, and you can just imprint them with with anything, and then you slide it through a machine, and it appears to be another card. And so a gas station is great because, like you said, they don't take there's no way to you don't have to do the code, and certain limits are small enough that they don't even check anything. So plus you could be outside at the pump or whatever, depending on what you're doing.
I feel like with these guys that are like charging like $5 here, $5 there, I feel like whoever told them or taught them how to steal credit cards was like, hey, listen, if you buy like anything under $20, they're not going to know. So just keep charging $20 here and there.
Crap. You just buy stupid shit. Like fill up a car, get a bag of chips, you know. I don't know. You know, to me, like there's often like a small purchase that a company that precedes the big one, right? Like they'll see if it works. And to me, this is like a lot of the comment spam I get. Like I'll get like a test post that someone will put up because they're not sure if it's moderated, and even though it's never, you know, it never appears, they then put the spam up. And so the next, you know, an hour later or the next day, whenever I look at it, I'll see two posts from the same guy. One will be like a little test post, and then will be the actual spam. And you know, and to me, like I think the credit card stuff is very similar to that. You know, you do a little test and then you do the real thing.
What's amazing to me with the credit card stuff is that we've become so comfortable using a credit card and going into all different types of stores and buying stuff because it's one-on-one. But even now, like I had a discussion with a relative. I was transferring money to somebody, and I said, like, hey, do you have PayPal? And they go, oh no, I'm not gonna. What am I, crazy? I'm like, why? He's like, oh no, I don't trust that stuff.
Doesn't trust
like PayPal. Like I don't trust using something like PayPal to transfer money. And I was like,
I mean, in many ways, PayPal is more secure because it obscures your credit card number from the other person, right?
They don't trust it. They don't want to give their information to this company. They don't know who they are. And I'm thinking, I have had my wife has had her credit card stolen maybe 6-7 times in the last 2 years. I have never had an issue with PayPal, ever.
Yeah. Oh no.
And this is on the internet. This is a company.
And by the way, had people been having lots of problems with PayPal, that would have been a huge story, and that would have been the end of PayPal. I mean, I think the reason PayPal's still around is that no one's had a lot of, you know, there haven't been a lot of high-profile stories like that.
Well, I think we spoke about it on the show, and we were talking about, you know, people that even a couple of years ago, they didn't feel comfortable buying stuff online.
Yeah, I told you the story about my dad. Probably,
yeah, your dad. And
buying the Dell computer. This would have been 10 years ago.
But there are still people that don't feel comfortable buying stuff online because they think, well, I don't know who this is. I don't know who this Amazon is.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I don't mean to make fun of my dad, but you know, I think a lot of the mentality of people is, you know, my dad just bought a printer, which he calls how did he call it? Not a wireless printer, a
cordless.
I think he called it an online printer or something. But anyway, the point of it was, you know, he tried to print to it from a laptop wirelessly in his house, and it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because the computer, it's not like a network attached printer. It's attached to a computer, and the computer it was attached to was off, so it didn't appear on the laptop. You know, it didn't appear as available, which is how that works. You know, and I don't know. Without consulting with me, he went to Best Buy and bought an online printer. I think that's what he called it. He called it something funny. I don't remember. But, you know, I talked to him on the phone. I'm like, Dad, look, you know, your printer's kind of old, but it works fine. You just have to make sure that the computer is on that's sharing it. Or you could just plug your laptop right into it. And that was just news to him. You know, like, oh, wait, I could plug the plug that goes into my other computer can plug into the laptop?
That's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you kind of push this sort of attitude about technology or lack of understanding of technology to credit cards and PayPal and everything else. And you kind of see like there's a whole generation of people that is very distrustful of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are people that don't trust any of this. I mean, they really, and you know, I kind of understand it, but I think we come, like the simplest of things, like a credit card is easily stolen nowadays. I mean, it's so easy to get someone's credit card information. Anybody working in a restaurant could have one of those card readers, whatever they're called. That
used to happen, you know, fairly often, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
probably still does, I guess.
I mean, even during the holiday season, I mean, all these places are hiring people, and I'm not saying that this is happening left and right, but there was an issue by me with the Long Island Railroad where they had a mirror recording people's credit cards as they put it into the machine, and they were stealing people's credit cards like that. I mean, crazy.
So actually,
stuff.
Yeah, my theory, we had our credit card number was stolen while we were in Ireland a few years back, and my theory is that that's where it happened at a ATM machine. They put like something over where the credit card goes in, you know. And I remember there was a weird credit card in the kind of a dark corner of the airport that we used as soon as we arrived. And then all of a sudden our credit card got shut down, and it was being used by someone in upstate New York, and
That's definitely not us.
Sure, but that's my theory.
Yeah. It's amazing to me. I mean, it kind of tied into technology, but it's the holiday season, so be careful where you're shopping and what you're buying and who you're giving this information to, because it could happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be just online. I think you're more likely to suffer from identity fraud and identity theft in person than you are online, really.
Well, there are trusted parties out there. I mean, actually, this isn't. I didn't mention this to you or have this in the notes, but excuse me. The website for the book that I'm working on went live last week, and we're taking payments, for the book, and that's an interesting little bit of, kind of technology related weirdness. But we take both Amazon and PayPal, right?
And what's the website, Paul? So I can pull it up.
It's windows81book.com, and it's just obviously, I assume it's obvious to anyone using this system that if you, buy the book this way or either one of these ways, I mean, we don't ever see any of that information. This is just, something that goes through Amazon, which is obviously very trusted by people, or through PayPal, which also is very trusted. So,
and the way that you're doing it is you name your own price.
Yeah, our suggested price is $2. People can pay less, they can pay nothing, they could pay more, but the point of it is to make it kind of a no-brainer,
I bought a copy. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry. No, I really look at.
I bought it. I paid $20 for the book.
What?
I paid you $20 for the $2 book.
It's not worth $20, Andrew.
I know. But you told me to name my own price. I feel. Listen, I think it's a $100 book, but I was willing to pay $20.
Yeah. So some people have paid a lot of money for it, and obviously it's appreciated. It's strange. I mean, I have a hard time. This is sort of off the topic. I mean, but even asking people to pay for something for some reason is hard for me. But I think I hope that I proved over the course of 20 years writing books, but just, in the past year, for example, writing the Windows Phone book. I mean, you can look at that book and kind of come up with an understanding of how big and, how broad the book can be and so forth. And my expectation is it will be that, within 4 or 5 months or whatever.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really cool idea. Someone said you're the Louis C.K. of books.
Yeah. Right. Except when it comes to the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's a slightly less lucrative business.
So Paul, we have a lot to talk about today, and yes. I want to go into the Chrome stuff, but not have to interrupt it and to do an ad. Yes. So I want to talk about Audible, and I want to do our Audible pick before we start the show, start the content of the show, I guess. So we don't cut into it because this was such a hot topic over the last week. Our discussion about the Chromebook, and we kind of just did it. I mean, I was talking based on what I had experienced, and I got a bunch of emails this week from people. So I want to go into that. But before we do, Paul, what is our Audible pick of the week?
Yeah. So generally speaking, I don't know. I lost when I had Audible up, and now it's gone. So generally speaking, my Audible pick is something that I'm listening to at the time, or have just started, or something like that. I've spent a lot of time this year walking and listening to Audible books. And lately, I have a hard time just browsing the web, apparently. I'm trying to get my library to come up. Lately, I feel like I've been stuck on this book. This is a weird thing to say. I'm not actually recommending this book. But because Dr. Sleep, the Stephen King book, which is a sequel to The Shining, was so good, and I did recommend that one earlier, I then went and bought The Shining to go back and reread that one, in Audible form. And I had read that book as a kid, years and years ago. And I got to say, I'm really not enjoying The Shining. This book is too long. It's convoluted. I've read a lot about how Stephen King doesn't like the movie version of The Shining, the Stanley Kubrick movie. I rewatched that recently. And I have to say, the movie version of this story is better than the book. It's not just more concise. It gets rid of a lot of the baloney. And this, for the first time this entire year, I actually skipped ahead in an Audible book. because it was just too boring. And it was one of those things where you could see what was going to happen. It was nothing important. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to go. I'm not, so I sort of say that only to say, unfortunately, I've not wasted, but much of the past month has been spent listening to this. But I have other books. And so one I'll be starting soon that I read in paper form when it first came out about 10 years ago is one called Masters of Doom. And this is the story of John Romero and John Carmack and how they started id Software and transformed the game industry. And that book is fantastic. I bought it. I haven't started it yet, but that's the next one I'm going to get into. And that I think that's probably kind of a better pick for the audience. But I have some other things. The Circle, which is that David Eggers book about a Facebook/Google/ Twitter type company that is the social network that controls the world. My wife actually wanted to listen to that one first, and so she just finished. I'm going to start that one soon. But I feel like the last month with Audible, I've been kind of slogging through The Shining, and I love Stephen King. I mean, I have easily 20, or more Stephen King Audible
was it the
books
narrator? Was it the narrator, or was it?
No, the narrator's fine. In fact, this guy, I can't see it in this screen, but I have no doubt that this guy has read other. It's Campbell Scott, so I could look him up, but I'm positive I've read or listened to others. Yes, so he did Salem's Lot. He did The Stand. He did It. He's a good reader, but man, it's a tough one. The guy who did Dr. Sleep, I should look this up before I say it to make sure this is true. Yeah, Will Patton. Let me just make sure. No, maybe not. Well, he was great. The guy who did Dr. Sleep was great too. But some of the Stephen King readers are fantastic, and there's a couple of guys who appear, again and again. And this guy's one of them. So it's not that. It's just the story is just not hitting it for me. And the story, it's a classic, obviously. And everyone knows the movie, and everyone knows the Jack Nicholson thing, and how that guy didn't win every award on the planet for that role. I'll never understand. But I don't know. The book it's kind of disappointing.
That's
it's like
fascinating.
It's weird.
Yeah,
So,
interesting. Paul,
Yeah.
I actually have an Audible pick of the week this week.
All right.
I never do one because my wife uses up all our Audible credits. Now, easily I could go and get Audible and use our offer code at audiblepodcast.com/Andrew and sign up for my own account, but I haven't done it yet. But I finally had a chance to download a book from them, and it was Crash and Burn by Artie Lang.
Wow.
I'm a huge Howard Stern fan. I grew up on Howard. When I started listening, I was listening when Artie was on, and I love the guy. I mean, I've seen him 1,000 times before. I thought he was brilliantly funny. And this is his latest book, and it's pretty much at the downfall of his career when everything just falls apart, and the entire book is just covering the time that he left the show because of his drug use, to the attempted suicide, to trying to get better in life. And I have to tell you, this book is so heavy and depressing. You're waiting for it to turn around for him at one point, and you're waiting for there to be like, and this is when everything changed, but it never comes. You notice at the end things change, but the entire book really is a chronicle of the last, 4 years of his life and everything bad that happened to him. And the entire book, you're just rooting for this guy to get his act together. Just phenomenal book. He's not reading it. He got a narrator this time to do it. I can't remember the name because I just closed the page. But phenomenal book. It's called Crash and Burn. The book just came out. Artie Lang with Anthony Bozza. He co-wrote it with him. Just really, really good book. And I was surprised how good it was. Really surprised how good it was. So that's my Audible pick, Paul. I never do one.
I think it's time that you did.
I think it's time that I do some
time
Audible
you pulled
pick.
your weight around here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk about the Chromebook because I got a ton of emails this week. And they pretty much the entire argument for this device from the emails that I've received, and I'm sure someone else has a different argument on why they love this thing so much, but it's the price and the fact that you could give this to someone and they can't really screw it up by downloading something they shouldn't be downloading. And it's kind of dummy proof. Those were the 3 points that I got.
Okay, let's go through those one at a time.
It's $280.
It is cheap. Yep.
It's dirt cheap. There's no Windows-based laptop on the market currently
that's not
that
true.
could compete with it. Those were the arguments.
That's absolutely okay. I'm sorry. Go to the one at a time. What was the first one?
So that's the one. The argument was it's $280.
It's cheap.
Yeah, you could even get a Haswell-based processor with a 14-inch.
All right. So the first problem is we're doing like a head-to-head comparison with Windows. You know, you have to speak in generalities. When I get into discussions with people on Twitter, by which I mean like arguments, right? Because these people are really indignant. Invariably, it boils down to some pedantic point. You know, somebody will write a headline where they'll say, "Chromebooks don't make sense," and it's like, right, but this thing was written in an enterprise blog on a business website. Yeah. It is not hitting the family circus or family circle, I guess, audience of general, consumers. Don't take everything out of context. You know, don't take everything so literally. And so I write about Windows primarily, but it doesn't mean that I have to, that everything, the solution is Windows. I obviously these people who are freaking out are not familiar with what I do at all, because I complain about Windows all the time. Yeah. Windows is not the perfect solution for every problem. When you talk about a device that is roughly $300 or under $300, I guess, you can in fact buy a Windows 8 laptop that Dell makes. It's at Best Buy that costs that exact amount of money. That's not the point. There are cheap Windows laptops. I think, again, speaking generally, not pedantically and literally, but speaking generally, I actually think that a tablet is probably a better option for most people than Chromebook.
Okay.
Because of a variety of things. Way better battery life, huge app selection, right? And it's optimized for the things that most people, again, not all people, but many people, most people actually want to do day to day. Email, web browsing, Facebook, whatever it may be. Chromebook is a weird solution to me because it is so easily solved by other devices. Android running the Chrome web browser is better than Chrome OS. Windows running the Chrome browser is better than Chrome OS. Again, not literally, not in every circumstance, not for every single person on earth, but in general. People have said to me that Windows is, too complex. It requires maintenance. It does, you can get viruses and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I mean, that's a valid argument. I think that's a totally valid argument.
It's a trade-off.
It is a trade-off. The other thing is,
it is life is a compromise. It's also way more powerful. Once you add the ability to do things offline and all the other stuff you can do in Windows, I mean, I think those things balance out. I actually think the Windows gets viruses, Windows is hard to maintain thing is a little bit of a red herring. I think that stuff is, I know it has. That stuff's improved dramatically over the years.
Yeah, I mean, overall design, I mean, another argument was that, that 11-inch is a beautiful laptop. It's a very pretty laptop.
That's absolutely true. And I think, I'd have to go back and read what I wrote, but in my article about it, I hope I stressed that. It's very reminiscent of the white MacBook that Apple sold for many years. That was a very expensive machine for the day. That you can get a machine, exactly like it for under $300 is very interesting. Now, of course, that machine has 16 gigabytes of storage, a really small amount. A lot of what you do on it does not work offline. You can't put a bunch of movies on it and take a trip on a plane and watch movies on it, things like that.
So who would you say this device is for? I mean, who should be buying this? Who should you be buying it for? I mean, there's obviously a group of people this is good for.
Yeah, so there's an audience. I mean, there is an audience. I think I talked about how most people, generally speaking, would be better served by a tablet. There are people who still like to write, or still need to type for some reason. And once you start getting into the thing where you're traveling with a keyboard and you're using Bluetooth to connect, you get into some weirdness there, I think, with a tablet. Some people, for whatever reason, maybe they have like a PC background, but they're getting older and want that kind of typing experience. That a Chromebook can make some sense, assuming they live in a place where they have, great broadband. One of the weird arguments about the Chromebook, and you hear the same thing with people defending Apple making iWorks free on the Mac. It's like, oh, what a benefit! We get the OS for free, and we get I work for free. It's like, yeah, but you just paid a lot of money for that laptop. What are you talking about? You're not saving any money. People are like, oh, it's only $300. Yeah, but you also need a really good and always on broadband connection to use this thing. And those are not inexpensive, generally speaking. So I'm glad that you're saving money on this machine, and it's kind of a throwaway thing, but you also need this kind of steady, expensive connection. It's a good second machine for kids. Kids in school, I think there's an uptick in school. I've talked to educators who, actually, I would say universally in the conversations that I've had with them, are distraught that their school districts are either considering or have, in fact, rolled out Chromebooks to the kids.
They're distraught over it.
Yeah. Well, because, what they want is something that's more applicable to what's going on in the world. I mean, web browsers are cute, and the limits that it places on what you can do with apps and so forth is a problem.
I mean, I think this is a great first computer for somebody. Like if you want to buy for your kid.
But so what's the world where you have a child and you want to give them their first computing device, and you're going to give them a laptop looking thing with a keyboard, and you're not going to give them an iPad? I mean, I don't get that. I think again, there are always exceptions, but I know that the app selection on an iPad, the app selection on Android, the app selection in Windows are all orders of magnitudes bigger than what you can do on Chrome and Chrome OS, that is. And you can take those devices with you when you travel, in the car, on a plane, and the kid is occupied. You'd have to really work at it to make that true with Chrome OS. It's it's like the round peg, square hole kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm ordering one. I'm going to get the 14-inch because the 11-inch I'll never use, but the 14-inch I'm fascinated because it does have an Haswell. It has a Haswell inside of it, which is cool. It's a nice design. It's a pretty laptop. The designs of these things are really nice, and it's under $300. So that's how I'm justifying buying this thing. But am I the target? Am I the person that's going to be using this? No, I'm not the target demo for this thing.
No,
the
and
target
by the way,
demo. The target demo, in my opinion, is institutions.
Yeah, well,
I mean, Google's. I'm talking about who Google wants to use this.
But I don't understand why they bother. Android is something that's well understood by businesses. It is something that's easily manageable, and you can run a pretty full-featured version of Chrome on it. Chrome OS, there's also an issue. I don't know if we talked about this last week. I can't remember what specifics we got into, but we might have brought this up. There's something a little odd, I think. I think one of the problems with it is, you open a screen and you look at it, and you get a desktop. It looks like Windows. It's got a taskbar just like Windows. You click on icons, and they run. Not just like Windows. They run usually. The
Chrome button is so strategically placed in exactly where the Microsoft Windows 7 button is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
fine. Whatever, it's fine.
It's great, yeah.
But it creates the impression that this thing is a PC, and it's not. I think there is a psychology to it when you pick up a tablet and it's not Windows, but the form factor is not a PC either, and you have different expectations and so forth. I don't know. I think the problem. Well, actually, I don't know what the problem.
I mean, it's almost like an in-between device, right? I'll give you a perfect example. My doctor's office. I went to my doctor's office, and they've always had these convertible laptops. That's what they always use there. You know what they were using? They have maybe 15 Surface Pros in that office.
Okay.
And I was talking to my doctor. I'm like, how do you like it? He goes, you know what? It's actually great because I can run all the program that I need to run. Everything is great. Yeah. You know what I hate on it? And I said, what? She goes, the keyboard. And I go, why? He goes, it's like, it's dangling. It's not, I can't kind of position it with my hand. It's very uncomfortable, and I don't like using it. And I thought, I'm like, you know what? It would be amazing if they had a keyboard that actually was kind of flexible and did what you want, like a regular laptop. If I'm holding it like this, I can position it, and it'll stay. But
I mean, there are many Windows machines that do that, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. But this device, again, it suffers from the same thing because it's not really a computer, but it's not a tablet. It's not a full-fledged operating system. It's this kind of like weird in-between device. I think people are just going to buy it because of the price. I mean, it really is going to become the netbook.
Well, by the way, obviously that's the big selling point. Obviously, is the price.
Yeah, and they know it. Listen, they wouldn't.
but again, $300. You have $300 to spend.
What do I buy?
My God, you can get an iPad Mini for $300. That's what most people would pick.
But Paul, do you think it's the same person? If I'm buying an iPad Mini, is it competing with this device? Is it the price point that's competing, or is it the fact that it's resembling a computer, and I'm now going and buying a laptop for $300?
If the people that are buying, one of the things they talk about, it's not Windows, so it's not complex. There's no maintenance. It doesn't get viruses. All these kind of arguments. It's odd to me that these people would gravitate toward a device that looked just like a Windows computer. Those are all strengths of tablets as well, by the way. And those things get much better battery life by and large. They have way more apps. And depending on the market that you're talking about, especially for kids, they have way more apps that are specific to those audience groups. Yeah. So whatever. I mean, I don't mean to say it's never the right solution, but it's usually not. I mean, even you don't have to use it for too long. For example, I might have touched on this. I can't remember what I talked about last week, but in Chrome on Windows on Chrome on Windows, I use Chrome on Windows. One of the things I could do is I could go to the Outlook.com website, which is a Microsoft site. Actually, that's not a good example because that one's in there. I could go to some random website, and it doesn't matter which one it is, my website, and I could say, I want to pin this as if it were an app on the taskbar in Windows 7 or Windows 8. And I can do that, and it's great. And when you launch that fake app, Chrome obviously displays the website, but it's not in a Chrome browser window. It's in like a Chromeless window, if you will, that has no browser UI. It's its own thing. It's its own entry in the app switching user interface, Alt-Tab, right? I can Alt-Tab to it. On Chrome OS, you can only pin items that appear in the Chrome store. So my website, I actually haven't checked, but I don't believe it's in the Chrome store. There aren't that many. I can't pin my website to the taskbar in Chrome OS, even though I can do it with Chrome and Windows.
Yeah.
And by the way, even if I could, when you run it, it runs as a tab in the one Chrome browser window that's running on the system.
Yeah, I mean, listen, right now it's totally limited. But how do you see this device evolving? Because right now, I'm thinking
it's not hard to see how it evolves. I just don't understand why they're doing it. Because I feel like Android is already mature and the right way to go. Like, Android should be the solution. But, okay, how do you improve? First of all, what Chrome OS does is prove that the web apps platform, HTML5 plus all the latest versions of whatever, JavaScript, CSS, etc., is getting very mature, and you can create real app experiences with it. We see this
good enough.
What's that?
It's good enough.
It's good enough if enough of that stuff is out there, right? So there are games out there that run pure HTML5 games. There are obviously, productivity websites. There are photo editors. There are even video editors. There's all kinds of stuff. It's a mature platform. The thing that's kind of always lacked is that offline scenario, and Google had an early version of it that they backed away from, and now they're going with more of a web standards version way of doing it. And you do see offline access in some of these apps. The Google Docs apps, I think Gmail and some others. Not in all of them, but in some of them. Obviously, it'd be kind of cool if you could have a kid play games or something on one of these things offline. That would be pretty good. So this is happening, but I think the maturity is you want to get closer to Windows in terms of functionality, but you don't want to get closer to Windows in terms of complexity, security problems, and so forth. And so you have to kind of mature the platform, without destroying it. And so it's not hard to imagine how they get there. I mean, Microsoft's approach is we already have this really powerful thing. Let's adapt this platform so that it works well as a mobile device, and that's what Windows RT is. So it's a different way of doing it. But I think when you start from a more functional platform, it just gives you more options, from the user perspective. And there are always going to be people who balk at the complexity or the security implications of Windows, real or imagined, whatever. And I'm not going to even try to convince those people otherwise. But I think those people tablets, are a
Yeah,
better option.
I think this is the bigger picture of this. I could see them doing something where they'll kind of merge the Chromebook OS, the Chrome OS, and Android into this
We
one
always expect that, but
one environment. You don't see it.
This year at Google I/O, they merged the oversight of these two platforms under one guy, and I thought, here we go, this is the start of it. And no, he came out. He's like, nope, these are two separate platforms, and we're going to keep them that way.
I mean, it's quite possible that both platforms haven't matured to the point to kind of combine them. If they gain some steam with this, which I think they are slowly, they're getting some steam with this. I think the price point is great. The tech bloggers absolutely love this device because it's so inexpensive and anybody could buy it and it's $300.
Okay. I am amazed that any tech bloggers like this thing because none of them can use it.
Well, it kind of looks like a Mac, Paul. It looks like a Mac.
It looks like well, by the way, the allure of something that looks like a Mac and costs $300 is completely understandable. But you don't have to use it too long to realize where they've kind of cut corners here. And it's fine for what it is, but you have to kind of use that caveat with it. I feel like we've spent way too much time on Chromebook.
I don't know. It's fascinating to me. I'm fascinated that so many people are upset that you don't like it, or I was a little bit critical of it. My whole point is this thing is way too immature to be even starting this discussion of it being a Windows killer in any way.
That is a very logical and defensible thing to say. That anyone would attack you for saying that doesn't make sense to me. That's the thing I don't get. Someone who wants to say, look, I don't care. I like it. I see this with this happened with Windows RT. The first version of Surface RT. To me, the performance just wasn't there. And you combine that with the lack of apps on that platform and I can't recommend this thing. You run into people who say, I don't know what you're talking about. I use this thing every day. I love it. Okay. It's perfect for what I need.
Yeah. If it works for you, works for you. That's it.
That's fine. But to contort that into this would be okay for lots of people, or this would be okay for most people, I don't understand why you need more than this stuff. And you get into these weird arguments. I don't understand who's not online all day long every day. Really? I hear from those people all the time.
Paul, I had a discussion with someone that was desperately looking for a copy of XP64.
Sure.
And I asked them why. Why? They go, I like XP. And I go, yeah, but 7 is the same thing. It's just better. And they go, no, I like XP. I have applications that run on XP only. And I said, you run compatibility mode. They go, nope, I want XP.
They're not going to like 64.
If you're happy, then
I had somebody looking for the install disk for Office 2003.
I have 10 of them. I'll send it to them. I have a whole bunch of them. Listen, bottom line is this device is way too immature. It's new. I see what they're trying to do. You know what would be a perfect device for me? Something that I've been talking about for a while. When it's docked in this beautiful device with the keyboard, you're running Chrome, and it looks like it kind of resembles Windows to you. Mm-hmm. When you undock it, you're running Android, and you have all your Android apps. Yeah. That's the way to do it. The same thing that Microsoft
There's some complexity to that,
sure.
but yeah.
Sure. But I mean, they've merged the team together. It's one guy running it, so
I don't think Android is all that complicated either. I mean, you're basically looking at like this kind of iPhone style grid of icons. You launch apps, whatever. I mean, this is not a complex system. You could have an Android, and they do actually. I've not tried one, but they have Android laptops essentially. And yes, if you could pop the screen off and use it as a tablet, bonus. So
yeah. So I don't know. That's the Chromebook segment of the show.
Well, yeah.
Please send your emails.
The most interesting thing about this is that anyone feels fanatical about this product.
But that's great. I mean, that actually shows
it is
that,
great.
Yeah.
But I put this on Twitter. I mean, I give them some credit for that. The sheer emotion here, the sheer inability to back down, from any criticism of this thing that they love.
Very Apple-like. I mean, it's Apple.
Yeah,
it's Apple 10 years
ago. For a long time. Apple obviously was it's not as militant as it used to be by and large, but the Nintendo stuff was like this for a long time. It's weird. You get into this thing in the technology world where you criticize something that people love, and it's like you have insulted them. Because obviously I love this thing and you have insulted it, thus you have insulted me. And it's almost never meant that personally.
I got one of the emails I got. They drew a direct comparison between the Apple defenders, the people that have been fighting about why Apple's so great, and the people that have been justifying it by saying like, well, you get iPhoto for free and you get iMovie for free. And,
that's why people spend money on Apple products. Free apps.
I'm a Mac user. I haven't used a Windows-based computer as my everyday computer in 5 years. I've been using a MacBook Pro. That's my everyday laptop. I could never use that as my defense. You know why I buy a MacBook? Because I feel comfortable with the keyboard because I type a lot. I think the overall design is great, and I got an i7 in here. It's a powerful machine, and I like it. That's why I own it. I like it. I would never defend it by saying, well, you get iPhoto for free, and that's a $50.
That's insane.
You know what I call that? The QVC way of selling a computer.
No, that's crazy. That's
order now, Paul, and you get $1,000 worth of software for free.
No, that's insane. It's insane because those products are expensive. I don't get this enough, but I will occasionally hear from someone who says, look, I know that I pay more for a MacBook or some Apple product. I've been writing a lot about tablets. Like an iPad mini is considerably more expensive than any other mini tablet. An iPad is considerably more expensive than most tablets. People will say, yep, I get it. I don't care. There's a quality that I perceive to that. I don't mind paying extra for that quality. It's why some people buy BMWs. They can afford it, hopefully. Fair enough.
Well, I think a lot of people are driving BMWs.
But a lot of people don't use that kind of an argument. And I saying that the existence of these free iWork and iLife apps on these platforms is justification for my purchase is wrong-headed. Those apps were not expensive to begin with. Especially compared to the price of the machine you're running them on. So whatever. They're fine apps, and you bought them or you didn't buy them when they were paid, and that's fine. But that's not why you buy them.
Listen, I think people need to stop having this crazy need to justify everything that they're buying to people that don't actually like what they bought. I don't have to go and defend the fact that I bought a MacBook Pro to someone that's not crazy about a MacBook Pro. I could afford a MacBook Pro. I like the design. I think it's an easy to use computer for me because the keyboard and the trackpad. Those are the reasons why I bought it. Now, if there's a Windows computer that comes out in next year that I like more, guess what? I'm going to go and use that.
Yeah, no, I think it's I've never been against the notion of buying a Mac to run Windows, for example. And I mean that. Because if that was a better option, I would do it. And I've told the story a lot about how a little bit over a year ago I bought that Samsung Ultrabook because a year and a half ago, when Apple was rumored to be coming up with what was supposed to be a 15-inch MacBook Air, I wanted that kind of machine. I wanted a 15-inch Ultrabook. Apple announced the 15-inch MacBook Pro Retina, which is a thicker, heavier, and way more expensive device. No way I'm going to spend that kind of money on something like that, especially since the Windows experience on it is so constrained because of the way Apple does the drivers. So that didn't happen. But if Apple had come out with a 15-inch MacBook Air, I would probably still be using that machine today as my primary Windows laptop. That's fine. And I would have said to you what I just said about these other people. Yes, it's more expensive than a Windows laptop. You know what? I perceive the quality as being there. And I would feel that way about a 15-inch MacBook Air.
Listen, I think we need
Doesn't exist.
People need to step back a little bit, breathe, and realize that these companies don't have any alliance with you. They don't really care. They're just selling a product. So you should stop being such a defender of the product. If you like it, that's fine. If you hate it, that's fine.
You can't talk common sense with this stuff. I appreciate your effort there, but I mean, this kind of tech platform partisanship has existed since, MS-DOS versus CP/M and whatever. I mean, Atari versus Commodore, whatever you want to say. I mean, we can go back through the generations. There's no stopping it. I think just to kind of bring it back to the Chromebook. I mean, I don't mean to say this in kind of a belittling way. It's hard not to, but I'm just surprised that a platform this limited has this form of backing from people who are apparently technical and have the wherewithal to do other things. And I'm just shocked by
I think that's the most powerful and most important thing that they've done so far with the Google brand. I mean, to have this kind of dedication from a group of people that have used the product
Yeah.
for, I mean, virtually a couple months at this point. But it says something about it, and I'm interested to see where it's going to head because I have not seen this kind of dedication for any brand other than Apple. You know, the Microsoft guys, you don't hear this.
Apple is obviously a great example, but I have seen it elsewhere.
But I mean, I didn't see with the Surface, Paul. I didn't see with the Surface RT. I thought people would be defending this thing and saying, you know what? Yeah, it's limited. I understand it's limited, but you could do this and you could do that, and the same argument that you have for the Chromebook could be attributed to the Surface RT. I didn't see that.
By the way, I have made the same exact complaints about Surface RT, which, you know, to these people, they'll never know that because they don't actually read my stuff. They're out there poaching anti-Chromebook quotes out of the air, and that's how they ran into me. But my Surface is talking to me.
He knows.
Listen, can you hear it? Oh, no.
What is he saying? Is it a boy or is it a girl? Is your Surface male or female?
That was bizarre. I just installed some firmware updates and other updates on the Surface 2, and it rebooted, and it had that kind of first boot screen where it says we're getting stuff ready for you, and Narrator was on, and it was reading the screens to me. I hope that stops. That's really irritating.
So, Paul,
yes,
quietly today, surprisingly, in a very not Apple-like fashion,
yeah,
Apple released the iPad Retina, and just like no big fuss about it.
So I think I know why.
Okay.
I think it's because this Retina screen that they have for the small device is in short supply. And so let me look and see. No, it's still 1 to 3. So it's funny. The more expensive ones are 5 to 10 business days, and the least expensive ones are actually 1 to 3 still. That's interesting.
Well, I know people that went to the Apple store today and they couldn't get them.
Yeah. I think there's, yeah.
So
I think they might have announced they were doing this last night. I didn't see it. But I got up this morning and I had one of those kind of brain fart moments where I'm looking at the news stories, you know, for the day. And it says Apple quietly releases, iPad Retina or whatever. And I'm like, was that today? I don't remember that. I thought it was going to be later. You know, I couldn't remember what the day was. And so I went and I ordered one, by the way. And it wasn't until after I ordered it, I realized they never announced a date for this one. It wasn't that I had forgotten it. This was literally a surprise.
I mean, late last night around 8, 9 o'clock, there were some rumors coming that Apple's releasing it on the 12th. And around noon, not noon, I'm sorry, midnight, the website went down. Apple
actually, their press release, if I'm not mistaken, is from last night.
Yeah,
no, it's actually the 12th. All right, so maybe it's not. I'm sorry.
I mean, it was a strange release for them.
Yep.
I wonder what the sales are going to be because a lot of people have kind of abandoned the original iPad size for this, and I'm one of the people that, again, like you're talking about people that don't get it. Like I don't understand why. I like the bigger screen. I don't want the smaller screen.
Well, in my many complaints about the original iPad, which still drives people insane, one of the first things I wrote was this size is too big. They need a smaller screen device. And, they finally did it. And I don't know if you have an iPad mini or if you've ever used one, but I actually find it to be a near perfect form factor for this kind of companion device. And, I bought one of the previous gen versions. The current version they're selling is like $299, 16 gig, non-Retina. I mean, it's not a bad deal, honestly, for that. It's a nice machine, but I'm really curious about the Retina version for obvious reasons, of the crisp text and so forth. So,
I know someone that got it, and they said it's amazing. The display is stunning.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
And so I think with the iPad Air, what we saw was, I think for the first time ever, in the Steve Jobs kind of iDevice era, not a lot of people standing in line at Apple stores. Like the day that device came out, you could just walk into the store, get one, leave, and it was no problem.
I went and I got screwed with the pre-order. They ended up refunding me a week later for the pre-order that I had done.
Yep.
So,
but I think part of the reason for that was a lot of people waiting for the mini. I think that's where the action is, and I know that's where the action is because the mini tablets outsell the full-size tablets now by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah, it's amazing to me, actually. That's actually a big surprise. But I was reading an article, and they said this is, why was this device released now? And obviously, this is a big competitive month, and they're competing with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox. Regardless of what people think of this as a gaming device, it's a console to many people. It's a place that they go to play their video games.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And this is serious competition now. I don't think it's between Sony and Microsoft anymore. I think it's between Sony, Microsoft, and I got all these other devices that are on the market. I'm actually I don't know why I think this, but I think the numbers for this generation of consoles are going to be much lower than we're expecting.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
I mean, we're not going to get initially. You're going to see a big boost in sales, obviously, but
listen,
do you think they're going to sell 80 million units?
This is not something that Apple gets right particularly well, but Amazon does a great job with this. You buy one of the Kindle Fire HD or HDX tablets, and there's this kind of amazing stereo surround effect that you get from the speakers built into the device. One of the big arguments about game playing on the big screen is obviously it's a big screen, beautiful HD graphics, yada, yada, yada. But now we have these small devices that have higher resolution screens than the screen in your living room, and will for some time to come. Incredible performance, kind of a more personal experience, right? You can't really do first-person shooters that well on such a screen and so forth, but the types of games that I think normal people, again, speaking generally, would want to play more in line with what you'd see on a tablet than on a gaming console. And so, obviously, a living room set-top box of some kind has its place, but I think the majority again, this is not my opinion. I mean, the majority of people playing games are not playing them on PCs. They're not playing them on consoles. They're playing them on smartphones, tablets. That's where it is.
No, absolutely.
That's why the PSP or whatever they're calling it, the Vita and the portable Nintendo devices are just not taking off. Because those are not multi-purpose devices. They're devices that can only play games.
I think they're going to finish off around 85 million units for both the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox for, I guess, the lifespan of that device,
Yeah, a little under 100, yeah.
So combined, they've sold under 200 million units in the last 6 years. That is, I mean, if you think about it, that's not a gigantic number. I don't know, and they didn't have the stiff competition that they have now. I mean, tablets did not exist. The iPhone did not exist for in the early days of the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. A lot of the and what we're forgetting, all these Android-based devices that are coming out. It's a totally different market now. I don't know if they're going to be able to compete with this $50 price tag per game.
Yeah,
I don't.
Excuse me.
People were making a big deal that it wasn't about the games; it was about the TV and it was about everything else you could do on the console. But really, that's their selling point now.
It's funny. The Xbox, the original Xbox, the 360, and other consoles of that era, plus or minus 5 years, whatever. The primary competition there, aside from other consoles, was the PC, right? And compared to a PC, they're simpler. They're known platforms. They don't change over time, which is a disadvantage to hardcore gamers. But they're the games for those platforms get better over time as developers become more familiar with the system. And because they're not getting changed all the time, they really get familiar with those systems. And some amazing games can occur over time, and it's great. But consoles suffer from that same problem that desktop computers suffer from, which is when you have a game that you're playing on an HD TV in the living room, you have a game now that you can only play on the HD TV in the living room. That's the only place you can do it. And if your family wants to watch Breaking Bad or something else on TV, you're competing with other people. I mean, one of the reasons that, Walkmans first and Discmans and iPods eventually, and now these other screen devices, we have tablets and smartphones and so on, are so popular is because they're personal and they're yours. And, my wife's not like a big game player, but she'll, sometimes she'll read on a Kindle at night if the kids are watching TV or I'm watching TV or whatever it is. Or she'll play, Candy Crush or some stupid thing like that. These kind of things give you the opportunity to do what you want to do, and you don't have to fight. other people for a screen. So
Yeah.
that's going to be this. This is the central problem. These things are in some ways dinosaurs.
Did I ask? Are you getting the PlayStation?
Yeah.
You are. Are you getting it the launch day or?
Yeah, I think I'd have to go back and check. But I'm pretty sure what I did was I ordered it from Amazon for same day delivery.
Okay.
For that day delivery, Friday. I guess it's Friday, right?
Yeah, I've sold mine already. I don't even have it. Yeah,
Wow.
I got somebody offered me a crazy amount for it because they can't find it.
Oh.
And
I mean, obviously I
agreed.
bought it for comparison purposes, but I did the same thing with the PS3, and I went in and out of it a couple times, but I never really spent a lot of time with the PS3. I was never particularly impressed by it overall.
Well, the UI is hideous. I mean, that's the big problem with it.
It's tough, and so we'll see. I'm very curious to see what they got right this time, but Microsoft stuff, and I was reminded of this today with the SkyDrive stuff they were talking about recently. The integration that you get there across the board with all of the Microsoft stuff is really compelling to me because I do use that stuff. And so, for example, with a Windows Phone, you can go out, take photos all day long, and you come in and you turn on your Xbox. You can do this with a 360 today. You can do it with the Xbox One. Those photos are all in SkyDrive, and you can watch them on your HDTV in a photos, slideshow. They're right there. And it's automatic. You don't have to load pictures off of the disk and copy them with cables or plug your phone into nothing. It's just they're just there, And I think that kind of stuff it's not why you buy an Xbox One or any Xbox, but it's one of those many things that kind of add up. And so I'm curious to see whether Sony has anything like that, for their stuff too.
To me, it seems like a lot of the passionate and hardcore gamers are kind of gravitating towards Sony, and I don't know why. I can't figure out why exactly they're doing that because
I can tell it's because of specs.
But the specs are the same.
There is a
It's the
perception
same.
that the PS4 has better specifications than Xbox One, and that is not how normal people buy things. If it was, everyone would be driving a V8 with a turbo engine and whatever. I actually think that ecosystem stuff, like I was just talking about SkyDrive as being the smallest example of it, is what sells these things.
Yeah, and Microsoft has a much better ecosystem and far more developed ecosystem than what Sony is doing right now. Sony
and
really
there's other stuff. Obviously, Apple sells a $99 device that you plunk it down in front of your TV and you have any iDevice and you can get any of your content on it, and it's kind of a seamless experience. And so they probably sell a lot of those things because, that's what those people would want. That makes sense. Sony, the problem for Sony is their other stuff is not an advantage anymore. No one's buying Sony phones. No one is buying Sony laptops. No one's buying Sony tablets.
televisions.
They don't have, they're not even buying Sony television.
That says a lot about them. I mean, that really says a lot about the brand and what they've done. I mean, it's actually
they had all the pieces in place. They had it all.
I don't think they got the U.S. market.
Label. They own music.
I just feel
That's
that
crazy.
the company never got the U.S. market. I mean, they were on a roll, and they somewhere along the lines they kind of fell apart. And it was in the mid 2000s. They just really couldn't adapt. They really, I mean, if you think about it, like I don't know anybody that has a Sony TV.
Well, for a long time, Sony Electronics had an incredible reputation. I always bought Sony. This ages it, but CD players, and I remember those 5-disc changers they had that were amazing. And then they had the kind you'd feed CDs into it. It would go into a huge changer inside. Back then, that was the equipment. That was what you bought. And in the early days of HD TVs, Sony Bravia was the brand. It was the Apple of HD TV, the BMW. You paid more for it, but the perceived quality was there. Now we have Vizios that cost $300 or $700 or something. It's and people are buying them and throwing them away.
I mean, Target put out their Black Friday deals, and they have I think it's a Vizio, 55-inch Vizio.
Yep.
For like $500.
Yeah.
120 hertz, 55.
I was just in Costco looking at the Vizios, and
I mean, crazy. It's a gigantic TV. I'm sure it's great. It's 1080p.
Well, they're funny. Costco's funny because you can see them. They're all next to each other. So it's like Samsung, probably Sony, and then Vizio. And like the Samsung was like $2,799, whatever the size. It's a huge size, 70 inches or something. And then like the Vizio was like $999. And it was like, okay, so the Samsung is better looking. Yep. It's not, $2,000 better looking or whatever the difference was, $1,500.
And in 3 years, I'm going to want a new one anyway.
Yeah. And when that one pixel goes out,
the whole thing is gone.
Yeah.
I told you, I bought a, and then we'll wrap it up. I have one more thing and we'll wrap it up. But
Yep.
I have a Sony TV I bought in 2000. I'm sorry, Samsung I bought in 2007.
Yep.
I paid a lot of money for it. I got the top of the line, I guess, whatever the most expensive 46-inch TV at that point was.
Sure.
I had it for about 6 months. And
Now today, you wouldn't even put a 46-inch TV in your bathroom.
No, I mean, it's tiny. It's in my bed. It's still in my bedroom, and I'm complaining about how small it is.
I know.
My wife was turning it on. And the TV's turning on, turning off, turning on, turning off, and this is like 2 years ago. I'm like, oh god! And by the way, I paid like $2,700 for this thing. And no, it's not a smart TV. It has no internet access, nothing.
Well, it is kind of a smart TV because this behavior probably started the day after your warranty expired.
I know.
So there is some intelligence.
Yeah. So I actually called the repair guy, the Sony repair guy, and he came. He's like, oh, no, there's a problem with this TV. I got to do a firmware update. So they do the firmware update, and he goes, oh, actually, there's another problem with the TV. The motherboards die on these things. And I go, okay. Are you going to change it? They go, oh, no, you don't have warranty. How much is it going to cost? $600. I said, no, thank you. You know what? I go, if it's going to die, it's going to die. I went online. I went to the AV forums. I forgot what they're called. It's like the big one. And I look, and people are complaining about the same exact problem. This guy said that the capacitors go on these things. They're faulty capacitors. I ordered the capacitors. They were like 10 cents for like 20 of them. I opened the thing. I soldered it. I did the TV repair. And it's working. It's been, 3 years. My wife was blown away by the fact that I opened this thing and I was able to fix it. But it works now. But if I didn't know how to do that, you know what? I would have probably dumped this thing and bought a new one. $2,700 later in the garbage after 2 years, 3 years.
I don't want to say I'm praying for my HDTV to die, but I know that when it does, I'm just going to buy something inexpensive. And
It's
and so much bigger than whatever we have in there now.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know. All right, Paul. Time to wrap it up.
All right.
We're done. What are you doing tonight? Anything big? Any big plans for Paul Thurrott?
I was sick all day yesterday, so I saw your drinking thing. I'm sorry I didn't respond to that. There's no way I can drink today.
Yeah, it actually kind of worked out. Jessica didn't show up with the wine in time. She was dealing with the bank, so I'm sorry.
But no, the iPad Mini thing happened today, and so I ordered one. And then I went and talked. I said to my wife, okay, by the way, Friday the PS4 is coming out. Next week the Xbox One's coming out. You might as well throw a couple of grand on the account because it's going to get ugly really quick. Because, I just got to get this stuff. So
you got to buy it. It's your job.
Yeah.
If you want to help us out here at the GFQ Network, you could use our Amazon affiliate link, guys. I know a lot of you are doing your Christmas shopping on Amazon. Go to gfq.co/Amazon and use our link. If you're watching live, you can click on the video, the little menu on the side of the video there for Amazon. Or if you're watching on our website, there's a little Amazon thing on the bottom. You can click on that. gfq.co/Amazon. A lot of people are buying stuff. Somebody bought a surfboard, Paul. A very
awesome.
Expensive surfboard.
Yeah.
Obviously, I cannot see who's buying what, but it gives me like a little list at the end of the week, and it says like, hey, look at all the stuff that was bought.
That's fun.
Really cool. Sometimes it's like totally random. It's like someone bought like a refrigerator on Amazon. It's like, wow, you can buy that? You can buy anything on Amazon. It's amazing. So you could do that, and I appreciate everybody doing it. Also, we have a lot of special shows coming up in the next couple of weeks. We have our special shows. Like we have our Black Friday show. We have the end of the year, the best of, the worst of, and our prediction show. So we have 4 specialty shows coming up in the next couple of weeks. I guess I'll put like a little thing on Twitter saying that when we're doing each, because it gets a little tricky with the holiday season. I can't remember how we did it last year. I got to look at the notes. For all things Paul Thurrott, go to winsuperside.com. He also does a show called Windows Weekly. I'm sure a lot of you people watch that show. We're Mary Jo Foley and Leah Laporte every Thursday at 2 p.m. You guys are moving to Wednesdays at 2 p.m., right?
Yeah, next year. Yep.
Next year, you guys are moving the show, so stay tuned for that.
I'm going to be part of Chromebook Weekly. That'll be my next project.
Chromebook Weekly. Yeah. Why? You know what? We should do Chromebook Weekly. And we could talk about Linux, and we could talk about...
Let's talk about what frustrated me this week.
Can we talk about... We should do a WebOS show.
Jeez.
The land of forgotten operating systems.
Well, clearly Chrome OS is used by some people. I mean, it is out there. There's a bunch of devices. I mean, it's, we're talking about it for a reason. We should be at least clear about that.
People are asking if we're going to have any schedule changes. The show is not changing, but we are going to add a bunch of shows to the network. So we'll post that on the website. You can follow Paul at Thurrott on Twitter, and you can follow me at Andrew Zarian. I think that's it. I think I covered everything. I got my notes. I'm not going to be yelled at for not covering anything, and we'll wrap it up. We'll see you all next week, guys. Good night.